If I asked you who was the second father of mankind, how many would know? The second father of humankind. And how much do you know about this person who became the second father of humankind? He was the very first one to be born after Adam's death. He was the son of Lamech. He was born 128 years after the death of Adam. He was born by a prophecy. Here's the prophecy, Genesis chapter 5, verses 28 through 32. And Lamech lived 182 years and became the father of a son. Now he called the name of his son Noah. So Noah was the second father of mankind. He called the name of the son Noah, saying, this one shall bring, the word Noah has to do with rest. We're going to bring you rest. This one shall give us rest from the work and from the toil of our hands. Listen to this verse. This is Genesis 5. This is verse 29. Arising from the ground which the Eternal has cursed. You remember the first sin? What did he do? Cursed, he said to Adam, cursed be the ground because of what you did. And he cursed the snake. You remember all that? The arising, this one will give us rest from the toil, the stress and the strain that arising from the curse that God placed on the earth. Then Lamech lived 595 years after he became the father of Noah. He lived 595 years and became the father of Noah, and he had other sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 700 and so on. And Noah, verse 32, chapter 5, verse 32, and Noah was 500 years old. Okay, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, 3 boys. Okay, so Noah, his name was rest or comfort. He's going to give us comfort in our day. At the time when the world was corrupt, and the world became corrupt, and people were violent, angry all the time. Why do you think they were angry all the time? Because the ground was cursed. It didn't do well. You can plant today, you can go out and plant a garden, and you plant tomato plants and eggplant and this plant, and if you get a good garden and water it well and so on, you'll have far more. My dad always had more tomato plants, more tomatoes, and he had to give them away, can them. He took, peck bushels, peck baskets of tomatoes to friends and neighbors and relatives. Would you like some tomatoes? He had so many tomatoes. The garden full. Did he have to work real hard? Not real hard. He tilled the soil, he planted the plants, they grew up, they just did very well. Genesis chapter 6, verse 8, but Noah found favor. Now the world became corrupt, but Noah found favor. In verses 11, this is same chapter 6, verses 11 through 14. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. Are we filled with violence today? No, not violent. You go out here, you stop somewhere, somebody might help you. I've been surprised. Some people, you know your way. I say, how do I get here? And you roll down your window. Oh, if they know, they'll tell you. I'm from here. You go down here. There's a couple. They're fine. They don't want to kill you. They don't want to hurt you. They'll say it to you. The earth was filled with violence, and God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way. Then God said to Noah, This this end of all flesh, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I am about to destroy them and the earth. So here we are. In fact, Noah was so righteous. Now, God found him righteous. In fact, he was so righteous that in the book of Ezekiel, when Ezekiel's talking about who can you save by your righteousness, he says this, Ezekiel chapter 14 and verse 14, even though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, three of the most righteous men named in the Old Testament. We call it the Hebrew Bible now, because it's that part written in Hebrew. Daniel and Job, Noah, Daniel, and Job, even though they were there in the middle of it, by their own righteousness, they could deliver only themselves, declares the Lord God. In Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 20, even though Noah, Daniel, and Job were there, they could only deliver themselves by their righteousness. They couldn't save anybody else. So here we have a man so righteous, so good, that God now chose him. Chapter 7 of Genesis, verse 1, then the Eternal said to Noah, enter the ark, and you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time. You alone, only Noah at that time of the world's population. So God instructed Noah on building an ark. He told him to cover it with pitch, make different rooms. It's like a giant boat, and had different rooms. You had to have rooms for different animals and so on. And he had only himself, his kids, his three boys, and their wives, the eight people. And chapter 6, verse 21, and as for you, take for yourself some of all the food which is edible, and gather to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that the Eternal had commanded him, and he did it. Now, there's a big, God instructed him the way you have this gopher wood, you had to cover it with pitch. Now, if God had asked me that, I think it looked like it took Noah about 100 years to do this. He didn't get any help from anybody. He was building this, and it became a symbol of something. People ask him, what's going to happen? Well, God's going to destroy the earth. Oh, yeah, that. And you're going to live a long time. And if it had been for me, it'd probably take me 500 years. I don't think I'd ever get it done, because I don't have that kind of skill. And this guy, he had the skill. He did it with his children. So chapter 7 of Genesis, verses 5 through 7, Noah did according to all that the Eternal had commanded him. Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood of water came upon the earth. Now he's working constantly. Then Noah and the sons and his wife and some of his sons and his sons' wives. So it was Noah and his wife, his three kids, and their wives, a total of 8 people. It appears that Noah was about 120 years in building the ark. How long did it take him? As I said, he could do it in 120. I would have taken me probably 500. I had been living a very long time. Genesis 6, verse 3 says, and when the Eternal said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nonetheless, his days shall be 120 years. In other words, mankind was only going to be there another 120 years, and you're building this ark. And when that flood came, and what happened when the flood came? It killed all the other people, except for Noah, his 3 kids, and his daughters-in-law. In 1 Peter chapter 3, he's mentioned here, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 20, in the New Testament, who once was disobedient. These angels were disobedient when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah. Kept waiting. He's trying to get this ark done. Now you say, well, why didn't God just put an ark there? He could have just done it one time. It would have been done in no time. Yeah, well, God usually works through people. God works through other circumstances. He didn't, he doesn't just plant your garden. He doesn't mow your lawn. God doesn't do that. You have to do that. And I'm always reminded of this story about the pastor comes by and he sees this guy, the farmer here, and he's got a beautiful barn. He's got this, and he's got crops, and he's got the, and the pastor says, "Oh, aren't you so happy that you have God as your partner? God's been your partner for a long time now. When you first bought this, you've made God your partner, and look how wonderful it is." He said, "That's true, Pastor, but you should have seen this place when God had it all to himself." So God works through people, right? Okay. And so he says, and course, now this is 1 Peter 3, verse 21, and corresponding to that, baptism now saves you. So he said there's an analogy for the ark and the water saved Noah. Baptism, water now saves you. Not the removal of dirt from your flesh. We don't wash you when we baptize you. It's okay, let's see, you got some dirt here in your face, we'll wash. That's not what it is. It's not for dirt on your flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at the right hand of God, having gone into heaven after angels and authorities and powers had been subjected to him. That's 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. In 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5, and God did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a preacher of righteousness. He's a preacher of righteousness. So while he was doing this, people would come along, what is this? Well, God wants us to straighten out. We're going to have something happen. And preacher of righteousness with 7 others. Noah with 7 others when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. So now, the waters come in. Look at Genesis chapter 8, verse 13. I can't read all the verses there, but now it came about in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the water dried up. And God flooded them, but in his 601st year. Listen to this statement. Let's go over it. In the first year, his 601st year, in the first month, on the first of the month, the water dried up. Do you know what day that was? What do we call it? Anybody in here? Feast of Trumpets. It's the first month. Now today we call it the 7th month and the first day of the month. But in ancient times, before God changed the order of the month of Tishri was the first month. And the first day of that month, and that's when the kings were always, put on the throne. They always reckoned the kings from the first day of the 7th month, first day of the 7th month. And but now here is the first day. So that would have been what we call the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so Noah removed the covering. Here they are in the ark. The waters had gone up. Now the waters dried up, and he looked out, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. But notice that he did not leave the ark until God told him. Notice in chapter 8, verses 15 and 16, then God spoke to Noah, saying, go out of the ark. He just stayed in the ark till God told him to go out. God, You go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. All of you go out. So what happened? God made a covenant. He made a covenant. But I want you to listen to the words of this covenant beginning in chapter 8, verses 20 through 22. Listen. Then Noah built an altar to the Eternal and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. So he was going to offer these to God. And the Eternal smelled the soothing aroma, and the Eternal said to him, I use the word eternal because my translation uses all capital L-O-R-D. If you have a King James Version or a New American Standard Version, they'll put it in all caps. That's the famous tetragrammaton, the YHWH, meaning the ever-living God. Okay? And the Eternal smelled the soothing favor, and the Eternal said to himself, I will, now listen to what God is saying, I will never again curse the ground on account of man. For the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy everything as I have done. I'll never again curse the ground. That made men violent. You couldn't do it. And now listen to this next statement in verse 22. This is Genesis 8, verse 22. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. God is going to set everything correctly. When God cursed the earth, you couldn't count on harvest time. You couldn't count on springtime. You couldn't count when it was time to do. That made men toil. It made men mad. It made men angry. And they were toiling so much to get food and to live because of the curse of the ground from Adam's time to Noah's time. And Noah came to give mankind rest, peace from the toil of their hands. So Noah became the second father of mankind. Chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, listen to what he's saying to them, exactly what he said to Adam and Eve, okay? Be fruitful. This is chapter 9 now. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the terror of you shall be on every beast on the earth and on every bird of the sky and everything that creeps on the ground and all of the fish of the sea. And into your hand they are given. You have dominance just like Adam had when he first. So he's the second father of mankind. He is told to fill the earth with people. He is told he has dominance over all the animals, just like Adam had in the first place. And I, for chapter 9, dropping down to verse 11, and I establish my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again cut off by water and flood, neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. And God's put a sign. What was the sign? It was the rainbow. It was the rainbow in the sky. And I set the bow in verse 12. This is chapter 9, verse 13. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me. And that's the rainbow. You know, the sun shines through the water, and it makes this rainbow. And it shall come about when I bring a cloud after the earth that the bow will be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant. Now this is, I want you to know, when the Bible is written like this, it's written as though God were a person. I will remember my covenant. I'm going to have a reminder. And God doesn't need reminders, okay? It's written from a point of view that we have to understand how humans are, okay? And so it kind of humanizes God here. I will remember. I will see that rainbow, and I'll remember, okay? And I will not do this anymore. The bow in the cloud, I will look upon that, and I will remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I've established between me and all flesh on the earth. Now notice chapter 9, verse 18. Verse 18 is a very key verse here. Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were, here they are, in order of birth order, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then this little statement afterward, and Ham was the father of Canaan. You see that? Very interesting and very significant for what we're going to read next. Now, there is a very strange and very difficult passage to interpret. Okay? Very difficult. I had the wrong conception of this for many years, but I don't think I have a wrong conception now. So let's read chapter 9. We're going to begin now in verse 20. We just saw chapter 9, verse 19. These three were the sons of Noah, okay? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And from these three, in verse 19, by the way, and from these the whole earth was populated. So Noah became the second father of mankind. His children, then, from these three sons, all of us have our genetic ability. We're all part of the same family. We come through the family of Noah. And they say it's only 1%, less than 1% of your genetic qualities of all of us. We're all alike for less than 1% of the genes in our body that make all the difference in the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, the color of our skin, the body types, the body posture. Only less than 1% of your genetics make up all that. All right, chapter 9, a strange story beginning in verse 20. Then Noah began farming. Now, the earth is all the water's gone. And he began farming and planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself inside his tent. I guess he took his clothes off. I don't know what he says, uncovered himself. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon their shoulders, and walked backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. Okay? And he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brothers, and also blessed be the eternal, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. Blessed be Japheth, and let him dwell in tents, and let Canaan be his servants. Now, when I first read that, now you and I are going to have a little bit of, how do we study the Bible? What do you do, okay? Actually, the first thing I want to ask is this. Do you think that a guy like Noah, so righteous, named among the Noah, Daniel and Job, right? So he would have gotten so drunk that he would not have known And the implication is, and for years I believe that Ham went in and did something sexual to Noah while he was so drunk he didn't even know it. Do you believe Noah, the kind of righteous guy he was, got so drunk that he even could not remember anything that happened to him? That's the first question. The second question is, was Ham the youngest of Noah's children? No, he was not. It's Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth was the youngest. Ham was the middle child. Shem, Ham, Japheth, in order of their birth. Ham was the middle child, not the youngest child. Okay? So that's the first thing we have to ask. Now, who became a youngest child of somebody? Well, let's take a look at Ham's children. And you remember I said to you that verse was very significant. It talked about Ham, who was the father of Canaan. Well, look over here at Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8. Okay? Okay. Who's the youngest son here? And the sons of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. In that order. Canaan was the youngest of Ham's children. So why did God, after Noah awoke from and he discovered what he had done, why did Noah say, "Cursed be Canaan," a servant of servants? Now we have to ask another question. When we ask the question, uncovering the nakedness of your father, what does that mean in Scripture? Let's take a look at Leviticus chapter 18, verses 6 through 10. Here's the law. None of you shall approach any blood relative of his to uncover the nakedness. Listen to verse 7. This is Leviticus 18, verse 7. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, that is, the nakedness of your mother. When you say the nakedness of your father, you're really saying it's the nakedness of your mother. If you were to go and try to have sex with your mother, you are uncovering your father's nakedness. That's what it's saying. Listen, read it again. Verse 7, Leviticus 18. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, that is, the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You are not to uncover her nakedness. Verse 9, you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife, whether she's your mother or not, your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, and so on. He goes on, the nakedness of your son's daughter, and so on and so on. But notice verse 8. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. If you uncover her nakedness, it's the nakedness of your father. So what was Noah when he uncovered that he found that his nakedness was uncovered? So does it make any sense at all that Ham sees his father, he sees the nakedness of his father? What would that be? The father's wife. And Ham goes out and he says to his two brothers, Shem and Japheth, I've seen my father's nakedness, and they said, we got to cover this up. The nakedness of Noah's was his wife. He cursed Canaan because Canaan went in this is my belief, to Noah's wife. And the two brothers said, well, let's take this cloth and let's walk backwards so we don't see this. She's there. And she evidently had been molested or had sex with Canaan, not with Ham. And Noah was not that, they didn't go in and do anything. He knew what his son, what his youngest son, what his, meaning Ham's youngest son, had done to him. You do it to my wife, you do it to me. You do it so to your mother, and in this case. Okay? That's what the scripture really means. So you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. Who was that youngest son? When it says him, his youngest son, who is that him? Because the Hebrew is sort of obscure on this. And I thought for years that Noah had been molested by Ham. And it was not so, in my opinion now. You check it out. You don't have to agree with me. You read what the scriptures that I had just given you. You see what you come up with. Now, there is a phrase used in the New Testament. Jesus used it, as in the days of Noah. You remember the phrase, the days of Noah? That's the way it's going to be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. They will be eating and drinking, marriage, giving in marriage. And the main point is that even though Noah was building the ark, it never dawned on them. And Noah's saying, why are you building this big boat? Probably the big boat was bigger than this whole building. Why are you building this big boat? Because there's going to be a flood. God's going to cause a flood because we've been unrighteous, because we're not doing right. By God, there's too much violence. We're killing each other. And someone, God is going to make a flood. Okay. If that's what, you're crazy. Man, you're out here in the desert. There's hardly any water. There's not much water in the Middle East. There's not floating, and there's not a lot of lakes. We're not damming up rivers. There's not hardly a lake. You got a big boat out here for nothing, pal, and I don't think you're going to be able to haul it anywhere. You got this big, giant boat, and it's not going to go anywhere. It took the waters to lift that boat off the ground. But he preached righteousness. He taught the people. And Jesus said, and they had no clue. They had no clue until the waters came and destroyed them all. Now he's mentioned, again, Noah is mentioned in the book of Hebrews. This is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. This is the Hebrews, let me see here. Hebrews 11, I want to read verses 5 through 7. But without faith, it is impossible to please him, meaning God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, you got to believe there is God, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. By faith, now this is Hebrews 11, verse 7, by faith Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the then world, the old world, and became the heir of righteousness, which is according to faith. The New Testament honors Noah as a great man, honors Noah as a righteous man, not a drunkard who took his clothes off to be molested by one of his kids, okay? The kid, Canaan, molested. And you're talking about, this is a forecast of the Canaanites, okay? What do you think the Bible was setting up here? The forecast when they went into the land and took the cities and took the land from the Canaanites on the coast of Israel. Yes. And for years, many preachers, many Christian people took this as as a racial thing, as though black people were bad. That is not true. This is not a proper interpretation of the Bible. Not at all. Faith. Faith is trusting God. It's trusting what God says. It's trusting what God promises. That's your evidence. Faith is the evidence of what we can't see. What we can't see, we believe. Now, I'm not here to say, okay, I've got the absolute evidence there was a flood here, you're looking at this stone here. I'm not worried about that. The Bible says there was a flood. I have faith that there was a flood, and that Noah, the preacher of righteousness, was saved. And because of that, you and I are children from Noah and his 3 sons.